Dr. Marandi, if I may, I'd like to start with you. What do you make of the Israeli attacks there in Syria? It's saying that it's attacked and targeted Iranian interests in that region.
Well, it's interesting that the Israeli regime has said that they've targeted Iranian troops and assets and bases hundreds of times over the past few years. But they failed to give any names of Iranian soldiers who've been killed. And the same is true with Hezbollah, except for the instance where recently they murdered 2 young members of Hezbollah who were in a building. And a couple of years back, when they intentionally attacked the T4 airbase, killing 7 Iranians, there have been no deaths among Hezbollah or Iran for the last few years in Syria at the hands of the Israeli regime. So the regime is using Hezbollah and Iran as a justification to strike Syrian targets, to violate international law, to kill ordinary Syrians in order to keep the Syrian state weak. Because after all, the Syrians have made major gains over the past few years. They've regained most of the territory in the country. The extremists, the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, which were supported by neighboring countries as well as Western countries,
right,
they have been defeated on most fronts. So the Israelis are worried about the Syrian government regaining its sovereignty. The irony, of course, is that the Israeli regime occupies the Golan Heights, which belongs to Syria. And even if they were to attack Iranian soldiers and positions, that was a violation of international law, because Iran's presence in Syria is legitimate because it is at the request of the Syrian
government. Okay, so if you allow me, Dr. Marandi, because we are to this segment short, I wanted to go to Dr. Aridi as well. Dr. Aridi, what are your thoughts on the Israeli attacks on Syria, and specifically, of course, Israel saying that it's attacking Iranian positions in that country?
Well, if we put things into historical perspective, I believe it would be a little bit more enlightening and more explanatory to the overall situation. When the uprising started in Syria, the regime said that famous statement that either the regime rules Syria or destroys it. And that slogan, that motto, matched what the Israelis wanted. The Israelis have been happy, in peace, and their borders are quiet for the last 5 centuries, with a little bit of skirmishes in 72. They occupied the Golan Heights in 67. And, historically, Ben Gurion, the establisher of the Zionist state of Israel, said one day that the danger on the state comes from the north. That is from Syria. In 67, they occupied the Golan Heights. And from that time, from 1970, the border was quiet, with the Assad regime being there. So Israel as such said, when the uprising started in Syria, they said that what they said matched with the regime's slogan, either we rule it or we ruin it. Israel in turn said that either this regime stays in power or Syria should be crippled forever, or at least for the time it was quiet on our border. The regime couldn't face the uprising in Syria. It invited Iran's militias, Russian occupation, and it was not legitimate to invite anybody or justification. Why is Iran there in the first place? To provide the pretext for Israel to do what it is doing. On the other hand, Iran is justifying its actions in Syria under the slogan of resistance and steadfastness in the face of Israel.